Platchums! So, we've been doing this channel for, I don't know, 8 months? 8 months? 9 months?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. But our gaming history stretches back to eons and eons ago. And we just realized that we haven't actually talked about our favorite games of yesteryear, the games that kind of formed our tastes and made us into the beautiful, wonderful gamers you see before you today. So we thought that we might just quickly chat about our favorite PS1 games, PS2, PS3, and PS4, just so everyone can get a bit of a taste on our history and our likes from an era before trophies, even, which got the dark ages of the gaming history. So Dan, we'll start with PS1, all the way back in the 90s and first year of 2000. I think the PS2 dropped in late 99 or in Japan and 2000 in America.
Yes, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, what was Little Dan's favorite game on PS1?
Yeah, it was, I suppose the question can be framed differently in different ways. Is it our favorite game today? Is it our favorite game when we were playing it? Because I'm literally just thinking these off the top of my head.
Yeah, this is a very off the cuff topic. We kind of just decided, sure, we have time for one more video while we're sitting here and have everything set up.
Yeah, I don't have anything written down. Look, my favorite game, possibly of all time, is it's a tough one because one of my favorite games of all time is on the PS1, and that's Final Fantasy IX. But in fact, my favorite game of all time is a game called Breath of Fire 3 that's on the PlayStation 1, and this is a game that just really opened my eyes to RPGs. It was a game I played kind of before Final Fantasy. It was a game that just, I think I'd played Final Fantasy before this, but this was the first RPG that like really, really hooked me, the first JRPG. And it's the third entry in the Breath of Fire series, but the older games were on like the SNES. And Breath of Fire
deep roots.
It does. Yeah, but Breath of Fire kind of follows like if all of the entries follow a main character called Ryu, who has like dragon blood, and one of the kind of unique mechanics of the game, and all the games are turn-based, just turn-based RPGs, but they're all have the unique mechanic of your main character turning into a dragon. But the game is like, it's long, it's like 50, 60 hours kind of off the top of my head. I kind of played through it pretty much once a year, to be honest. It's just got that like nostalgia overload for me. I remember I got it off this guy who I was in primary school with, and he did not like PlayStation at all. And I went over to his house one day and he was like, "Oh, that's my cousin's PlayStation." And I was like, "Well, that game looks cool." And he was like, "Oh, you can take it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I brought it home, and it was like, it's just
back before we developed that stupid adult mindset of ownership.
Yeah,
like, I'll take it.
Yeah, it might have been like you can borrow it, but I never did return it.
You heard what you wanted to hear that day, Dan. I think
I did.
You little prick.
But no, the game is amazing. It's just got kind of everything I love in an RPG. There's kind of there's a shift in time kind of in the game, so you kind of see the characters change, and the story is really cool, and it was especially deep for me as an 8-year-old. I was like completely blown away.
I'm 8 and this is deep.
I'm 8 and what is this? So yeah, it like that for me is a game that I just go back to all the time. I love it. I love the combat. I love the story. I love the characters. And yeah, and then Breath of Fire 4 is also on PS1, and that's similarly excellent. It's another amazing game, and they don't follow. It's kind of like Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
they don't follow.
Yeah,
they're their own little world. So yeah, that's the game that I'd have to really give it to on PS1. I go back to that game every year, and I really, really love it. It's got a special place in my heart. It's on the PSP as well. Actually, you can buy it on the PS Vita. So if you want another JRPG to play on your Vita, you can download this.
Such a JRPG machine, isn't it? It gets the
Yeah.
dance seal of approval.
So what about you? Yeah.
Well, PS1, it was kind of like the whirlwind years of discovering myself as a gamer, you know. So I mean, when it pops into my head, you know, obviously say like even Tony Hawk's 2 would deserve a shout out. Spider-Man 1, and of course Metal Gear Solid. Now I've kind of made a promise to myself that I won't use that. I use that as an example for my favorite PS1 game because I don't want the whole thing to be Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 5. You know,
Yeah.
but just to mention by Metal Gear, it just it was the reason I think I loved it so much was that it showed me the storytelling capabilities that were possible within video games. Because before that, you know, like arcade games, you know, fighting games and Tetris and you know stuff like that. And I guess like to a lesser extent Pokemon, but that did have like a narrative thread, but it wasn't as like well realized in these super amazing 3D now look like cornflake box graphics. So I just was blown away by like the sheer volume of like the voice acting, the quality of it, the villains, the environments, the stealth mechanics, which were still very rudimentary and new in those days. So I could wax lyrical about it, but I'm not going to. But I just have to mention it. But I'm going to pick Silent Hill 1.
Sorry, I was like 100% sure that was your one there.
Yeah. No, see what happens. Even when I say I don't pick it, I just end up ranting about it.
You completely picked it there, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I picked it, but I didn't. No, okay, but I'm actually going to pick Silent Hill. So for anyone not familiar, Silent Hill 1, it centers around a guy called Harry Mason who essentially loses his adopted daughter in the worst place possible to lose a child in the fictional town of Silent Hill, which is perpetually covered in fog, which actually was just used to disguise the technical limitations of the draw distance of the PS1, but it actually kind of led to stumbling upon that beautiful foggy aesthetic that made it what it was. So the reason I picked that game was just it had an atmosphere to it. It was the game that introduced me to survival horror and I guess like the kind of the puzzle solving, the you know I need a key for this door and you need to memorize everything, and I just thought the story was excellent. And yeah, again, not going to like bore anyone too long with it, but it was a standout game and it was just unlike anything I had played before. And much like Metal Gear Solid, it kind of I think it was really important in developing my taste as someone who enjoys video games, that it was just something so unlike I'd played that it just stuck with me, and I think it kind of veered me off on a different path, definitely towards stuff like survival horror, but also you know, like puzzle based games and narrative driven games. Like those two were like the foundation of that. So they'd be my pick for the PS1. Well, what about you as we move towards the beautiful black box that was the PS2?
Yeah, a great choice. Silent Hill is fantastic. I was so scared of that game when I was younger.
Oh God, it was horrifying.
It was so scary.
No wonder I'm fucked up. Like,
yeah, no, I watch a lot of speed runs of Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 to this day, and it's such a great game. It's such an atmospheric game, and it still is creepy. You know,
it still is that. It's like just a tangible atmosphere that definitely wasn't that common in games. It was very, very unique.
So for PS2, I'm going to give one honorable mention to Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. That's a game that actually recently got re-released on the PS4. It's a Baldur's Gate game. It's like a spin-off, so it's not the typical kind of, you know, real true Dungeons and Dragons RPG. It's a asymmetric action RPG, but it was a game that I just put so many hours into, especially in co-op. It's similar to Diablo, but it's a little bit more action heavy, and yeah, it's just a great game. And there's the second one, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. And the reason I wanted to bring that one up is because Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance is out, I think possibly tomorrow, and it's getting a very, very mixed response.
Ooh.
I've seen reviews of it as 9, and I saw SkillUp's review, and he just titled the video "Truly, Truly Awful." So I'm
Tell us how you
excited to
really
see.
feel,
I'm
Skill.
excited to see how that one goes. But yeah, Baldur's Gate was a game I loved for its co-op. But I think really I have to give my PS2 game to Resi 4, just as a game again that I
What
go
more
back
needs to be
to.
said?
I go back to it all the time. I could play that game any day of the week. Um,
It's in
it's
the Gaming
just
Hall of Fame. Like
yeah,
if you were to have an imaginary, I don't know, it doesn't need to literally be a hall. I don't know where I'm going with this, but if you were to draft up a list of the 30 games that you just have to play or that showcase the best of what gaming can be, it's on there
yeah,
in my list, in my eyes. Like it's so revolutionary in like the use of like, I know Splinter Cell did it first. Okay, that's with the over the shoulder. That's always something that
yeah,
it gets like an unfair praise for. Splinter Cell, like that was the first example of that over the shoulder kind of shooting.
yeah.
But Jesus, what a game! Like, it was just so fun. I still actually argue that the GameCube version is the best one. I know that
Yeah.
goes against everything, but I think visually it was a lot sharper on the GameCube, and there was something about the big A button that just felt so damn right.
Well, I own it on the GameCube, and I own it on the Wii, and I own it on the PS2, and I own it on the PS3, and I own it on the PS4. Because technically the PS3 one is on
You're a
both.
whale, man. You're like a
But
resi whale.
yeah, no, I didn't buy it for the Switch yet, but I was tempted. No, I could, again, I really just could play. I know the game like the back of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a fun game. It really did set in motion the kind of third person action game.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Leon is super cool. It was just
That jacket. I just wanted
yeah,
that jacket, and it's still so fresh. Even
it
even in
is, yeah,
2021, it still just looks so damn fresh. No, great choice there. For me, with the PS2, like what a generation of games. Like it's very very difficult because I guess on a different day of the week, I'd probably give a different game in
yeah.
terms of like my favorite. But
I don't know how you're not going to say Metal Gear Solid 3.
on other generations,
Yeah.
but on PS2, it is just unashamedly Metal Gear Solid 3. It's
Yeah.
just it's just exists on a tier all to itself for me. I I'm almost scared to try to begin to explain why I love it so much because it's a game that's been spoken about to death by people that are far more intelligent than me. But I think it was just a perfect culmination of like setting, mechanics, soundtrack. Like that's a binding soundtrack. Like, and also just the fact that they kind of reeled in and just started with like a prequel, so they could just have like a very self-contained story. So you don't need to play the other games. Of course, it helps because there's nods and obvious, references to earlier events or like Raiden, with the Colonel or the mask. If you say you like Metal Gear Solid 2, you start with the mask of Raiden. I think it just had so many unique intricacies that I haven't seen in a game before or since. So it had like the stamina system where you need to like eat. It had the camouflage. Now that sounds like really daft, but when I actually reflect on it, it was the first game where it really felt like I was interacting with the world, and it
Mm,
mattered what I was wearing against which texture I was
yeah.
like up against. That was something quite new because normally, especially on PS1, they were just like you can't interact with the world. They were just pre-rendered or just drawn, or so the fact that the game registered the texture you were up against, and it affected the gameplay like to a really important extent. And
Yeah.
just like the wealth of options, like every boss had their own camo, like the moss print from the end. If you managed to sneak up on them, you develop the skill of photosynthesis, and it gave you 100% camo index on like certain areas. The fact that you could, throw a snake at a guard, it'd be poisoned. You could blow up the munition shed in a level, and then later on, because you've blown up the enemy's supplies, they'll be hungry, they'll be tired, they'll be less vigilant and easier to take out, or there'll be less of them.
Yeah.
Hidden like radio stations, just like there's just, and each level, I love just the jungle environments. They're essentially small rooms with trees. It's not open, it's very, very linear.
Yeah.
But what that design allows is that each area feels really different and exciting when you come into it, and you get to learn all the nuances of just this room essentially, and the way it builds up to like bigger areas. And then you go to Groznygrad, which is like traditional Metal Gear, really, because it's a base. It's more akin to the environments you'd see in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. And then it just ends in just this mad glory. It's just a game that I finished umpteen times. I could talk about it all the, like, just, all day. But in short, there was just so many fantastic gameplay mechanics. I thought the story was excellent. The boss is one of the best characters, I think, in gaming history. Personally, and particularly in an era where female representation is kind of like a hot topic. I always point, like, the boss is just a stellar character, independent of the fact that she's a woman, but just for the sake of this point, yes, she happens to be a woman. But I just thought that just a really like gut-wrenching finale that it just lingers long. And also just that damn interactive opening cutscene with like Snake Eater.
And I remember, you highlighted as well when we were talking about The Last of Us Part 2, and that whole amazing innovative thing where the enemies that you killed are then kind of brought back into the game later at a later point, and of course that's that was done in MGS3 first.
You literally have to crawl through a river of the people you've killed in the way you've killed them. So if you slit a guy's throat, you see him going, "Why would you do this?" Or if you shot them in the balls, they're holding their balls. And the thing is, that section could be 5 seconds long or 10 minutes long, because if you are doing like a no kills run, you immediately just reach the sorrow because you haven't killed anyone. But if you were like a Rambo style, like going around with like the M60, that section takes a lot longer, and each ghost damages you a little bit, so it actually is beneficial. So but then again, like, they're also going, like, in the last one, we could go prone. Madness.
No, fantastic choice. I think a pretty predictable choice, but like it's we're not here to surprise anyone, I suppose. Moving on to PS3.
Interesting generation.
Yeah, do you want to go first, perhaps?
Yeah, PS3, Metal Gear Solid 4. No, PS3, I kind of want to just make 2 quick mentions to games. Like, because again, like, I hate saying like a definitive one. The only game I can definitely say is like my favorite of a generation is Metal Gear Solid 3. Okay, but everything else, as I said, it kind of changes based on like the mood or the day of the week or whatever way I'm thinking. But one would be BioShock. And the reason being, I wasn't a big first-person shooter guy back in the day. Like, I had PC. My PC couldn't run Crysis. Okay. I played a bit of GoldenEye and like Agent Under Fire. There was not enough. Essentially, all the James Bonds first-person shooters, and Doom. I remember playing, but it never really connected with me. I think what BioShock did so well was just the goddamn world design. And that setting is just so iconic. And the fact that it tied you in with a really entrancing narrative, I think that's what hooked me, was that it was a first-person shooter, yes, in essence, but with the plasmids and with the different weapons and the setting and just the narrative, that was just everything like tied in so well with the story. Every
Yeah.
action in the gameplay it ties in with the story, you know. So I think that was just a really just a fantastic game that again kind of opened me up to then start exploring more first person shooters, especially narrative driven ones. And then the second honorable mention would be Fallout 3. So much like first person shooters, I didn't really like, the PS2 wasn't mad for the huge open world games, say like, you know, Oblivion. I guess the Bethesda kind of ones. And I remember I played Fallout 3 for about an hour and hated it, and then didn't touch it for like 6-7 months. But then I went back to it, and that moment when I left the vault and just saw like the Washington Monument is just so burned into my mind. I'm just like, wait a minute, like I can go anywhere, so that's why my friend loves Oblivion. And it just kind of made sense. So I was like 17, playing like my first kind of massive open world game, because to be fair, you know, at the time it was the first big game like that made it to console, that was more akin to like a PC experience. So yeah, again, that completely opened me up to big crazy in-depth RPGs. But my pick would be Dead Space. That would be one that I think in terms of generation, it's like the perfect survival horror game. It's really well paced. Okay, maybe the final boss is a bit but ignore it. Brilliant like setting again, like the Shimura. The enemies are legitimately terrifying. You feel vulnerable throughout the experience, but you can also finish the whole game with your starting weapon.
Yeah.
It's
a great continuation from Resi 4 as well, actually, because, you know,
it's like it came 3 years after Resi 4, and it had things where you could move while you could shoot, on like Resi 4. So little improvements like that. You could say, okay, like Isaac doesn't talk, but I'm just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, really, in that game, much in the same way it didn't matter that old Claude Speed in GTA 3 didn't talk. It's like all this mad shit's happening around him. Like, what are you going to say that's going to make this better, Isaac? So yeah, and like just the suit, and I loved just I think one thing I think was quite I think it was quite influential in the kind of clear HUD or hub on the screen. Like the health was incorporated into the suit, which is still like so clever. It was just very minimalistic, and just great graphics, and just like the kind of physics of like shooting off the limbs and stuff. Like it was just a damn good game, super well paced, really atmospheric. And I think for me, the last truly great original survival horror game.
And a great sequel as well.
Dead Space 2, true. But
I know you like Dead Space 3 as well, but I haven't played that myself.
Yeah, like it is my least favorite, but I still think it's still a very solid game, and it's still like much better than most other games. It still has those sweet, smooth mechanics of Dead Space flowing through its veins. So like, like the story's a bit and it's like, oh, you're on a snow planet now, you know. But I still thought it was great. And again, just co-op, man. Just co-op makes everything umpteen times better, and it was a great co-op experience. But yeah, that would be my PS3 pick. What about you?
Yeah, Dead Space was one of my first PS3 games that I played, kind of 4 platinums. It was kind of at that real kind of inception of when I started to get platinums.
I think it was my second platinum. I'm almost raging that it was my first.
It's an amazing game. PS3, it's such a hard one, because
it's a hard one. Yeah, you know, I would change, because you could say Red Dead Redemption, you could say God, like even God of War 3 or GTA 4, or like any one of the multiple amazing RPGs, or like there's just it's
so many, like even like above 90 games like on Metacritic.
Portal 2.
Portal 2, I was definitely thinking about Red Dead because I just, I think it was the first game I just remembered like so empathizing with the main character. I
It's
just
that
grew
voice,
to,
man. Such a
you know,
sexy voice.
like Nico in GTA 4 was a good character, but he always had that. I don't know. I didn't. He wasn't as warm as John.
Now Nico, in to be fair, he had a tough life.
He did.
You can't blame him for being a little bit
True,
on the
but so did
dour
John.
side.
So did John.
Maybe things would
Uh,
be different.
but just I don't know. It's just like because you kind of see John at a really like vulnerable time through his life, and that redemption arc and
I think
the
that he's trying
ending.
to get away from it.
Yeah,
Creates like empathy that he just doesn't want to be there, but he's just completely caught by his past.
yeah. So now that I'm thinking about it, yeah,
Are you
there's a
picking
lot
Red
of
Dead? I think
there's a
you're
lot of
picking Red
parallel.
Dead.
I'm not picking Red Dead. There's a lot of parallels between John and Nico. Actually, when you think about it, it's just Nico had even like
Nico
Uncle
had
is
worse
kind of
hair.
like that's true. Yeah, he was. But yeah, so like I was thinking Red Dead. I love that game so much. But I think I have to give it to Demon Souls as my favorite game.
Not surprising anyone.
No, like Demon Souls it really was just like a watershed moment for me. I remember getting the game. I think I'd like failed some exams in college and I needed to like repeat some in the summer.
Totally unrelated.
And like I was there in the summer holidays and I think I had maybe 2 exams to repeat. Maybe it was just one, but I had some like exams at the end of the summer then to repeat. And I remember Demon Souls arrived kind of like in June or something, and I just remember like I remember not studying, at least, suffice to say, but it was just such a different thing. It was such a different experience. I'd never played a game like it. A game where I was expected to just lose and just expected to get better. And, the mechanics of Demon Souls are still basically exactly the same as the mechanics that are in, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne. Like it's fundamentally the exact same foundation.
It was such
there.
A good idea that all it needs is a little fine tuning.
Yeah, like that weighty, exact combat,
meaningful combat.
Yeah, and I think the iframes with the rolling, and it just did something so different, like something that a lot of other games had done at a very like loose level. There was countless third-person action games, third-person platformers that had kind of combat. Like Devil May Cry had its own kind of combat style, but everything was always so floaty. Everything was always so, you'd hit an enemy and it wouldn't feel like you hit an enemy. There'd be no.
Or like if you got hit, like
yeah.
every time I got hit in even Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, it's like like every single time you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, and it kind of translates to you. It's like, yeah, it's like this is such an impact. Everything had impact
with the same weight.
Yeah. So that game was just so different. I've told this story before where the guy in the game shop told me about the game, about just the first boss, and just I remember when I played the game and I was like so determined because someone had told me about the boss and I was like so determined that I was going to get him on my first go, and of course one smash and I was
naive
down.
You were down.
But like it was just, I don't know, like, and I know it put a lot of people off at the start because Demon Souls didn't make that splash that Dark Souls did.
Well, I think when it was released, it's like we've got the benefit of hindsight and multiple From Software games, multiple Soulsborne type games. You see, it created its own genre.
Yeah.
So when this was like the first game that really kind of, I guess, people noticed, and the first kind of true interpretation of this Soulsborne genre, like the seed of it, I think people just didn't know how to fucking react.
No, and people did think they thought it was too hard.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that it was unforgiving. They thought that it was cheap. That you'd be killed at every second. But like the genius of Miyazaki was that this everything mattered, and this combat was effectively perfect. Like I would say it is like the perfect.
It had to be, because when you take away, I think what probably irk people. There's no difficulty setting.
Yeah.
So you're completely at the whim of the experience that the developer has created for you. You can't change it to very easy. You can't change it to super hard. There's just the game. There's no other experience. It's the exact same difficulty for everyone, and the balancing is the exact same, and you can't make it harder or easier. And I
Yeah.
think that that's almost like the true genius of it, is that this is a completely curated experience, like in under the surface, like it's really curated. And I think that that just shows just the how well those games are designed, really.
Yeah.
Like personally, that's something I learned from playing them. I'm like thinking what they had, like how much balancing and like testing that they have to do here, because it needed to be perfect.
Yeah, because they even had the PvP element, where you could invade others, and
Hmm.
that type of multiplayer was quite unique, as well, where it was, there there was, you could leave people hints and things like that. It hadn't really been done in that fashion before. Um, but just even beyond the combat, I just think Demon Souls itself is such a atmospheric game. It's got such amazing locations, and I love the minimalist story that the Souls games always tell, where it's like you have to piece things together yourself, and that's why you have, people like
Yeah, they're not ones for exposition.
no, but
In
then
this,
it creates its own like subgenre of, lore experts, like we
I
have on YouTube.
I wonder if like Miyazaki and like the developers are just laughing at the dots people are connecting that just aren't actually there.
Well, no, I think they are, and
I
because
know, I
he is
know.
he's he is very like candid about his inspirations too. So I think there's probably an element of it that they can kind of cut some corners maybe in some places, so
Oh, it's
that
like
you can.
people will read into it. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no. So I can speak about Demon Souls all day. Again, I played it on the PS5 because I love it so much, and yeah, it's got to be my PS3 game.
Yeah, solid pick. So with PS4, we kind of discussed this at length on one of Plat Bros podcasts. So I don't know if there's much point in going over old territory here, but for the sake of just continuity in one video, I will cover it, because it'd be a shame. It's like our entire generational pick, and then we just cut out PS4.
Yeah.
So on his podcast, I said my game of the generation was The Witcher 3.
Hmm.
So I still think that's like a solid pick, but I think just as time has kind of gone on, I was kind of like mulling over the question as we are talking here and just before. It's
Well,
just
I think that just to kind of quickly put something in there, I think the game of the generation and your own game, your own favorite game of the generation, is a little bit different, because like picking
Mhm.
something like The Witcher is a good choice, because you can take into consideration that its wide appeal and
Mhm.
its longevity and things like that. But it's not necessarily, it doesn't always have to be your favorite game, even if though you can
Yeah,
recognize that The Witcher is
best
possibly.
game and favorite game are
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
disguised as the same thing, but you're right, they're slightly different. So I just been thinking more and more God of War,
Hmm.
just because of just that it was just such a bold idea. It's like, let's do it all like that one scene from Children of Men that everyone always talks about. Let's do it like one camera. Let's give Kratos a son, yeah, and a wife that's dead and a big burly beard, and let's just have like a man show up and just attack the shit out of him straight away. And it was so ambitious. And like after watching the documentary and the making of it, and with its lead designer Corey, just to see like everything he went through and put into that game, and the entire development team at Santa
Yeah.
Monica, to be fair, um, it really is just a testament to their work. And I just thought it felt like a big game. Do you know what I mean? Like it just had that big gravitas to it, and it was a real showstopper.
Hmm.
Um, Bit grindy towards the end with the platinum, but that the trophy list is a separate thing. But more and more, I'm just thinking Death Stranding.
Mm.
Maybe it's because we started a pandemic uh, around the time I was playing it, or I played it shortly before that. But then the idea of this like world, everyone's separated in their own little quarantine, that they're relying on people to go out and face the world while they're in safety. It was somehow apropos to what was happening. Um, and I just think, again, what appeals to me with the games are just like unique mechanics, and Kojima's just a goddamn master of that. Whatever about his dialogue, which I will admit is dog shit sometimes, and someone needs to tell him no. Jesus, no, Hideo. Like, just no one says that. Um, just the fact that, much like Metal Gear Solid 3, it was the first game in a long time that it's like you actually had to like pay attention to the world.
Mhm.
And because yourself, you're playing an open world game, it's very much A to B, and you get a mission at A and then something happens at B. I think Ghost of Tsushima is the goddamn best example of this, just A B style development. You see a cutscene, you're told to go there, and like, oh no, the Mongols, that like rinse repeat for like 10 hours or whatever.
We couldn't get through it without bashing Ghost of Tsushima.
We were so close.
So close. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but with Death Stranding, I always explain it to people like, it's everything in between the A and B that matters.
Yeah.
So even in a game like The Witcher, I would zone out, just kind of, it doesn't matter if I like just zone out, just get to the marker, and I don't need to pay attention to the terrain that I'm on, the type of stone I'm on, or the weather conditions. It just doesn't matter, because it's completely aesthetic. There's nothing interactive to it. It just looks nice. Maybe if you fall off a cliff or something, but like, but with Death Stranding, every single step you had to pay attention to, and I think that's a very, very interesting idea that will be expanded upon. I think as time goes on, people will point to Death Stranding as that, because I think that's like the next logical step. It's like you have to make the worlds far more interactive, or to make these environments matter,
Yeah.
as opposed to just looking nice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just think I'm really intrigued to see what they do on the PS5 version with the
Yeah.
haptic feedback. I think that's going to be fascinating to see.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think they're going to have a lot of fun with that. So yeah, it's funny because yeah, it's just that the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, that was kind of like a really, really just unique experience. And yet I don't think the narrative was stellar. It definitely could have done with some being a little more condensed, or less goddamn Princess Beach moments. I've never been more embarrassed to be seen playing a game in my life than during that damn cutscene. Just tonally, just the most abrasive thing I've ever seen in my life.
They had so many great story moments as well. There were just some like there were some wow moments for me in the story as well. So
but like the word, it does make sense,
yeah.
So I just really, really appreciate the game, and I think that, yeah, like The Witcher 3 still can be mentioned,
Yeah.
And yeah, I think just Death Stranding, God of War just kind of lingered a bit longer in the memory as time's gone on. But what about you as we wrap up? What is your favorite PS4 game?
Well, similarly, I said Bloodborne previously, and I think I stand by that in a lot of ways. Again, Bloodborne, like Demon Souls, is a game that I can go back to all the time, and I think the beauty of Bloodborne is how different it is, but rooted in the same formula as the Dark Souls and Demon Souls. So Bloodborne is definitely one of my, it'll always be in my top games, definitely. But there's definitely some other huge standout games there. It'd be kind of remiss of me to not say Destiny and Destiny 2, given
The
the
amount of
absolutely
time you've spent on
yeah inordinate amount of time that I've spent on Destiny. Like, it's actually crazy.
Will we put the number on screen?
Yeah, you can flash it somewhere in
We'll
one
it
frame or something. But but no, Destiny is just it was like before I kind of got really into PlayStation, I was quite into MMOs on the PC, and I felt like those were it's a time I look back on quite fondly because I had a great time playing them. But I also look back on it and I think, wow, I neglected a lot of things playing these games. And Destiny kind of really itched or cured really scratched that itch for me in terms of kind of a game that I could kind of keep going back to with that
Based on the
MMO
time you had,
style.
based on the time you spent on it, that itch was, oh god, it was bad.
Yeah. But like it was also a game that you could kind of put down any point of the day. It wasn't like a game, an MMO where you had to be
You're
on.
left behind, like if you don't keep
Yeah,
up. Yeah, yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it was a game that you could pop in and out of. It was just it really is. It's the tightest, most mechanically flawless shooter game I've ever played. It just like Bungie are really the masters of that kind of competitive. Like I know people would be people go scoffing like what's he talking about? Like of course we've played quite a lot of even myself and you we've played a lot of Counter-Strike together and things like that. But just in terms of like of fun mechanics for a shooter, I just think Bungie just have it nailed, with like Halo 1, Halo 2, and then of course with Destiny. They just know how to make a shooter feel good. And then of course, involving like the supers and the grenades and everything like that. It just works so well.
I still just love Black. That was a great shooter.
Black was a great, especially with the destruction. That was super cool back in the day. Actually, it's crazy to think that they managed to pull that off on the PS2 when you think about it.
I don't know how they did it.
But Destiny would definitely have to be like one of my big mentions. And the only other one that really like that's changed in the last few months is The Last Guardian. And it's a game that I really put off for so long. And
I've been putting it off for quite some time.
Yeah, I put it off for so long. And of course I come from a place where I love eco or ico. I'm not sure. I say ico, but I think it's eco.
I say Blyco just to annoy people.
Yeah. I love that game, and I love Shadow of the Colossus as well. I played it on the PS2, and then I played it again on the PS4. So like I was always hesitant to play Last Guardian because of the kind of semi-mixed response. Like it did well, but it never did this. It never made the same impact that Shadow did. But I don't know, when I played it, it just really, really clicked with me. I love the story. I love the characters. I thought Trico was absolutely amazing. Like for a game to have such an animated animal-like creature in it.
You said it was just so animal-like.
It was so crazy. Real. It was really like a dog. It was like it would just because
or a drunk man.
Yeah, you can give it like commands, and sometimes it listens to you, and other times it doesn't. But when it doesn't, it's because you're like confusing it because you're giving it too many commands, and it doesn't. It's not like a robot. It doesn't go here and here. It like might just go a little bit around because it'll spot something unique. And I was so endeared by the game the whole way through. I really had a great time with it. I had a great time getting the platinum. Even though the platinum is it's one of the more awkward ones, definitely.
Yeah. It's an arduous one.
It is, but I don't know. The game just, sometimes a game just clicks with you, even though it might not click with everyone. And The Last Guardian really did with me. And it was a real standout game that I played on my PS5 as a PS4 game.
So I really have to play it now. Like I've been putting it off for so damn long, and I don't know why. I think it was because I think that the hype for it kind of deflated. So by the time I got it, it was like, well, I've already waited like 8 years for this. Like what? So I'll play it next, and it just always gets left there. And I'm kind of glad. Like it's the type of game that in 4 years you can pick up and play as long as trophy support is still there, because it's like a single player experience. So
yeah,
time is on our side with that, or my side in this case, because you finished it. But I'm intrigued. I think that's a good shout. And so it's kind of a unique one. I don't think too many people have quoted it. It seems kind of like a forgotten gem already.
It is, yeah. And like I think it was it was great that it was included in the PlayStation Plus collection going over to PS5,
Mhm.
which is where I played it. But I'm going to pick it up physically because I really want to just have it on my shelf because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think you'll have a great time when you play it. I hope. You might call me like, what the fuck is it?
Well, so guys, let us know your favorite PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 games. I think we can leave PS5 for a while. Let it actually get some games first. So,
Yeah.
Dan, great choices. You're a man of
You
culture and
too,
class. I don't know which
and you.
side
I think
I'm supposed to be on. You know.
if I did this,
Yeah, just to be. My arms are disappearing. My arms are disappearing.
Platchums!